Dude, Joe, have you heard about OpenAI's $1.4 trillion spending commitment? I mean, these guys are only making like 13 billion in revenue right now.
Bro, it sounds like they're about to go into some serious debt. Serious.
Yeah, I agree. Welcome back, everybody, to the Coast to Coast Traders Podcast. I'm Robbie.
And I'm Joe.
Joe, so we talked about AI a couple of times. I did a little solo episode. I maybe preemptively called it the bubble, and we run quite a ways since then.
hmm
But I keep hearing bubble. A lot of people are talking bubble, and we've had some market corrections recently.
Yeah, we definitely have. And to be fair, I think a lot of people have been trying to signal that this is a bubble for a while, and then and that's what often happens, right? Is that people who try to call the top, they usually end up on the left side of the V. And now it appears that we've kind of broken some highs, and then we've had some swift rejections off of those highs. And we might be on the right side of the V starting to come down here. A lot of people are certainly betting on that.
Yeah, and it doesn't help with the government shutdown that we're missing a lot of employment data. And I don't know about you, but you've probably seen lots of posts on social about all these companies laying off tens and tens of thousands of people, and in some instances replacing them with AI, right?
Right, right. That's of course where people try to say that the biggest net gains are for a company replacing, people they pay salaries to with just computers, right?
Yeah. And one of the problems we have, we use employment as a metric to judge the economy's stability.
hmm
Um, and with layoffs so big, it takes time for other companies to like reabsorb those people. But if they were laid off for AI and replaced by AI,
hmm
then we have like a multifaceted problem. We have, well, they're maybe not going to be rehired because if they were laid off over at this company for because they were replaced with AI, then what's to say that the next company doesn't already have AI in place to do some of those jobs? And then the second issue is that we're still fighting with, H-1B visas and stuff.
Yeah, it is definitely a huge, probably global macroeconomic problem that is being presented here by trying to scale up AI very quickly and maximize that dollar amount return off of it while juggling through the employment, the visas, the everything that's going with it.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
though. I don't know though.
I,
I the one thing that bugs me about AI though, real quick, is that it's just that that's what we call it. Like, because it's not really AI
yeah.
yet. It's really just the language learning models, right? You type things in and it's at times not even as good as an old school Google search. Where it's
Yeah.
not giving you correct information.
And I don't like that they call that hallucinations either.
Yeah, it's
That
pretty.
really bothers me.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. You actually, what we were
Mhm.
talking about this on and before we started the recording. I think this is a perfect example of when it's not giving you correct information. Let's look at really quick. Let's look at the Mag 7 returns that Grok was telling me. You want to just like show that real quick?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So, I went to Grok really quickly and I asked a couple questions about the Mag 7, right? And so it gave me, the Mag 7 quick stats, right? So like here's the Mag 7 stocks, and then here's their market cap approximately, and their percent return, right? So
Yeah.
the market caps I know are wrong because Nvidia was actually closing in on a 5 trillion. So I'm pretty sure these are off by quite a bit. And then,
Yeah.
but regardless of that, look at the percent return, right? So let's look at Apple. It's saying 22% return. If we look at Apple, this is the Apple yearly chart. I'll zoom in and just make it easier for you all. If we look at where Apple closed last year to where it sits currently, it's showing a 7% return. If we even go up to the peak, it was showing only a 10% return, right? If we go to where the
Yeah.
low was all the way to the high, it's showing 63%. So like if you were going to calculate this year's returns though, you should be thinking about the beginning of the year to current. Are we up or are we down? What's this year's return? And it's only showing about a little less than 11% at the high and really only about 7% currently versus the 22% I said here. Now let's jump down to NVIDIA, right? It's saying 145% return. This is supposed to be as of today.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. So where is it pulling its information from?
Right.
for it to be so inaccurate on some things
Yeah, if you
or
measure
inconsistent.
exactly. Now again, the year-to-date return should be from where we closed last year to current. We're showing a 40% return. However, for NVIDIA, it's showing a 145% return from the low here. So like
Right.
you wouldn't measure, like you wouldn't say that's this year's return. If we go down to like something like a monthly chart, again, right? We just look at this. This is the April lows. That's what it's saying is the low of it, right? But where did we
Mhm.
open up the year? We opened up the year right up here. And where are we sitting
Yeah.
now? Showing a 38% return. Even if you went to the all-time highs, 56%. So it's just really weird that it's using different means to calculate the rates of returns, and it's also showing you obviously false information about market cap.
Right.
And that's just the beginning,
Do
right?
you do you know when you like do you recall when you really first heard about like ChatGPT or like when AI large language models started becoming like more mainstream? Like when did you start hearing about it?
I don't really remember. I know it was low for a year ago. I feel like it was probably midsummer last year, midsummer 24.
Yeah, I think it was like around ChatGPT 2.5 that it started to become like really mainstream for me.
Okay.
I had actually heard about it in 2019 because I played Dota. It's a an online like battle type of game, 5 versus 5, and it has really big prize pools. And OpenAI, they created a team of bots to play against world champion Dota players.
Okay.
Best of three, a best of three match tournament role, basically 5 versus 5, and they mop the floor with them. And after that, I kind of forgot about it. And so, like similar to you, only up until just recently did it start coming around.
Yeah.
And so, like OpenAI, everybody wants to have a deal with them. Like if you hear X company OpenAI, you guarantee there's going to be some rally in the market the next day, or
Mm-hmm.
immediately if it's in real time hours.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't think they have the special sauce, man. Like they were just the first one, in my opinion, to make noise.
Yep. Yeah. So
And
do you think they're going to end up being like the BlackBerry of cell phones? Is that kind of where you're getting at?
I mean, they could be because if they go away, I don't think that we lose anything. We have a lot of competing companies. There's Claude,
Mm-hmm.
Grok, and then if you remember somewhat recently, and maybe recently is not the right term because time flies, and I can't even remember sometimes what I said just a few seconds ago when I walk out the door. But
Yep.
uh, when DeepSeek came out
Yeah.
from China,
Yes.
everybody was panicking because they were like, "Oh, they don't even have Nvidia's top chips, and they're putting out this model that's so much more efficient. It's using lower quality cards." And the reality was they were probably lying about which cards they were using. But regardless, what happened? Well, there was a little bit of a market panic, but then also OpenAI and Grok and all these other models incorporated the deep seek technology and style of question answering into the other models. So
Yeah.
it's really easy to copy and paste, one person's system and then bring it into yours because
True.
there's nothing proprietary. It's open source.
Very true. That's very true. I was just looking really quickly at my NVIDIA chart here because I thought I had actually marked where there was that DeepSeek AI gap down because it was considerable. I thought it was like in August of 24, somewhere around that time, which I think that's exactly when it occurred, August of 24. But it says
Yeah,
that ChatGPT was out earlier than that.
I mean, it's definitely been out. It's been out for a long time. It's just for when it started becoming mainstream for us.
Hmm. Yeah, it says about
Um,
2023, in early 2023, it came out and it got to like
mhm.
5 million users in like a day or something like that.
Yeah, so how about these numbers, man? Did you heard about this? We talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't know where you heard about it from, but like there was a podcast that I saw from this guy named Brad Gertzner, and he interviewed Sam Altman and Satya Nadella from Microsoft,
Hmm.
and they were kind of talking about things. And he asked Brad specifically asked Sam Altman, who kind of seemed to get a little bit offended about it. He's all, "How can a company with 13 billion in revenue make 1.4 trillion in spend commitments?" And Sam kind of like annoyingly laughed it off and said, "Hey, if you don't want your shares, I can find a buyer for you.
Hmm.
And that's not the response you want to hear from a CEO,
Yeah.
in order to justify spending and revenue, right?
Right.
And I don't think that the average person really even understands how insane of a delta that is. So
Yeah.
if we can just break this down into like normie terms,
All right. Hit me, bro.
okay, so 13 billion versus 1.4 trillion. That's like $38 promising to repay or to spend $4,000, or $2,000 promising to spend 21.5 million. Hey Joe, if you loan me 2,000 bucks, I'll
All of
pay
them.
you, 21 million. I'm good for it, right?
So you know what this?
Nobody would do this.
Nobody would do this. You know what this makes me think of? It is the show Shark Tank, right? So imagine
Hmm.
me going on Shark Tank and just saying that, hey, I've got $2,000 in revenue, but I value the valuation of my company is over 2 million. They would just be like,
Yeah.
are you high?
Yeah, they laugh people off the stage all the time and they ridicule them exactly for that. And then I won't go more than this, but like $50,000 is probably a figure that a lot of people can relate to. And so if you make $50,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
then your spending commitment would be $538.4 million.
I mean, it would be fun though. That'd be one hell of a shopping spree.
Yeah, where are they going to get the money from though? Because they've already gotten all these deals.
Well,
So where is the rest of that money going to come from?
they want the money to come from the U.S. government.
So it
That's
seems, right?
Yeah, that's what they're asking for, which is hella sketchy, bro. Like super super sketchy.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good idea to show everybody this, kind of revisit the graphic that we kind of touched on very quickly a couple weeks ago. Is
Hmm.
how NVIDIA and OpenAI fuel the AI money machine, right? So you have hardware,
Yeah.
investments, services, venture capital, right? And then so there's a lot of just money that's being like pushed back and forth, right? So OpenAI spending, money on hardware, Nvidia investing money back into OpenAI. It's just like this is a swap.
Right.
Like this is a
Hmm.
swap. Like there's all these different like swaps.
Yeah.
I don't
Dude,
know.
Joe, was it CoreWeave, uh, many NVIDIA earnings ago, that borrowed money against chips that GPUs that were going to buy from NVIDIA before they even had them?
It
Or was
was
that something else?
it was SMCI.
SMCI? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was. But I remember this exact thing because a lot of people, you could call them the FinTwit conspiracy theorists type of people. These are the same people who insist the mother of all squeezes is still coming on AMC. Um, Not exactly the same exact people, but that group. Anyways, they were the ones talking about it. They were like, "How is this even legal?" That essentially Nvidia sold them the chips, but then the chips were on loan, and then like they basically took the money and like kind of put it back. It was just like a weird circular thing, kind of like
Yeah,
this.
and then the stock rallied because like, oh, here's 50 billion, or was it 50? Like it was a big figure, but like,
Mm-hmm.
stock rallied because, oh, here's big revenue that we can rely on, but not really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know,
And
dude.
on
This.
that podcast,
Yeah.
Brad asked Satya Nadella um about the circular lending, and he didn't. I mean, I would have to watch it at multiple times to like really understand what he was saying, but Satya from Microsoft basically said it wasn't really a thing. So, but that aside, man, like it just looking at these charts, I just don't understand how it's not. Like everybody is holding up the market. Well, AI is holding up the market, and it's just the eggs are in too big. Like, the basket's huge, and I don't know, man. It doesn't sit right with me. But I'm glad for a pullback, for sure.
Yeah. This is weird. AMD gives OpenAI the option to buy up to 160 million shares of AMD. But
Yeah. Hmm.
OpenAI is going to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD. So they're given the GPUs, and they get the option to buy the share. It's an odd thing. This whole thing is pretty odd, dude. I just try to think of this in terms of like normal, like things that are normal, right? It's like this is your income, right? And like you loan money out over here, and then some of it comes back to you, and then you go spend money at, you know, on Xbox or whatever, but then some of that money comes back to you as like whatever, and then you do this, and some comes back, and but then you put money over here, but you don't get anything back until it goes over here, and then you get some back. Like it's just this is very difficult to follow and understand, and we probably need somebody who's got like a doctorate in accounting to be like, hey, we need to look into this. But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's no reason why to what was I gonna say, to investigate their books. Not yet, anyways.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing too is that Microsoft reported 4 billion of losses in their Q4 relating to OpenAI. And then in that same podcast,
They
he
did, huh?
mentions that they have a lot of GPUs that they can't deploy because they don't have enough data center capacity and, equally as important, energy to power those. So, like, is there going to be a glut of CPUs? Once we have enough energy, and then on top of that, let's say, like, how long are they going to be sitting on these GPUs that are inactive? And then, by the time maybe they have data center capacity and energy to power them, the next chip's coming out. So then, are they going to be just sitting on like a really horribly depreciated asset because, from one generation of chips to the next, the value
Mm-hmm.
doesn't hold up that great.
Right.
And then there is the whole, was it Jensen? I think it was Jensen from NVIDIA
Mm-hmm.
saying that China was a nanosecond behind us. And I think you were just mentioning to me that now that they're saying that we've lost to China.
Yeah. So that's probably you're going off of this like Kobayashi letter, right? So
Hmm.
um, on Tuesday he said China is going to win the AI race. Then 3-day decline of about $500 billion in market cap gone from Nvidia. Then,
Yeah.
because he's never explicitly stated that in the past. And then later, he releases a statement that says they're nanoseconds behind us. So, like,
Oh, okay.
I think there's some confusion here as to, like, how could he say both of these two things? And it's like, well, hold on a second. The race isn't over, and they're right on our heels, is all he's saying. So he's saying they're right on our
Yeah.
heels, the race isn't over, and I think they're going to win. That's all.
Hmm.
Like, that's all, right? It's basically just saying, like, I'm an average guy, and Usain Bolt's right behind me, and it's unlikely I'm going to win this race.
Yeah. Unlikely. I mean, if it's Usain Bolt, there's no way in heck you're winning that race.
I mean, I could trip him.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't
Yeah,
trip
that's true.
Usain Bolt. I wouldn't trip him.
You play dirty?
Hey
Oh
man, hey
man.
man, this is AI race, dude. Somebody's got to own the first Terminator. Might as well be me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we should link that podcast in the episode because it's a really good watch, most specifically from like Microsoft's perspective,
mhm,
and I think it'd be good for people to just kind of like hear their side and how they're making money from all this because, like,
sure,
whether or not OpenAI goes away, Microsoft, it's not going to affect them really. They
right,
could easily switch to another open or another AI type of solution.
yeah, or just their own, right? At this point, so I'm sure they're
Hmm.
probably working on something standalone because that's the thing too is why would everybody continue to partner with them instead of just like I can just do my own thing? I can just buy these chips and do my own thing, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
and that's and like that video you shared with me illustrates just relatively easily like
Hmm.
how relatively easy it is for somebody to just do their own thing,
Yeah,
right?
and that's also why NVIDIA has such a great hold in the market is because they're the supplier of the chips, but more importantly than just that, they
Mm,
won because of software.
right.
So like, in the Bitcoin run up, like circa 2017, I could be wrong on when CUDA came out, which is NVIDIA's like architecture, I guess. That might be the wrong word for it. I'm not a high level like programmer technical person in that regard, so forgive me if I'm wrong on that, on like stating like what the actual terminology is. But CUDA is like the architecture that is widely used and exclusively used by the NVIDIA GPUs, and then people based like their mining programs and other compute softwares on CUDA. And so even though AMD might have had a competing graphics card for the sake of doing video games and graphics and like 3D modeling and stuff like that, they didn't have people using CUDA because CUDA is specifically for NVIDIA chips.
Okay.
And so that's why NVIDIA has a big lead right now, because they don't only have just the CUDA, but they have like, man, I don't know if you've seen any of the NVIDIA tech conferences somewhere recently, but they have, and it's kind of wild, but they have like robot training simulators and all kinds of stuff. So like if you want to be in the space, NVIDIA has a solution for you in the hardware and in the software and in the cloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bro, they're selling shovels in the gold rush.
For real. Hmm.
That's the simplest analogy for all this, is they're the ones selling the shovels. It's interesting that you
Yeah.
talked about that's what I brought up while you were talking earlier, is Microsoft has declined over 8% since reporting that $4 billion OpenAI loss, or AI loss.
Yeah.
So $4 billion is I mean, it's not a small chunk of change.
Right. And then there's some more nuance too with that OpenAI deal with Microsoft, because OpenAI is exclusively going to be using Microsoft Cloud services until like 2032, or unless AGI is verified. So I don't know why that would give them an out,
Hmm.
but I'd probably have to rewatch that to like understand more about that.
So this is the graph we shared, the graphic we shared in the original podcast, where we just kind of touched on this same sort of thing, where the money is just flowing like back and forth, right? A lot of it
Mhm.
entering, really this is the great place to be, right? Is selling the shovels or leasing data center space, right? So that's a great
Yeah.
place to be. That seems to be like, I think maybe we should, for future episodes, look up how to invest potentially more in this space. Um, but let's go. You want to go into the Michael Burry?
Sure.
So with people thinking that it's a bubble, this is some information that Michael Burry had shared, right? So first, this is the Mag 7, right? Which, Robbie, you've mentioned
Or
this one in the
that's
past.
Michael. That's a different Michael, but
Oh, okay. Sorry,
yeah,
it's
sorry.
different Michael, but yes, but Michael Burry is also using this and to as part of his foundation for his second Big Short too. New movie gonna be coming out
Mhm.
probably. But you and I have talked about this, man. Why don't you talk them through what they're seeing on this chart?
Yeah, so like I think, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. Like sometimes I can't keep track of our pre-game chat versus like what we already talked about in the podcast. But like
Yeah.
I had that solo AI episode just briefly, and I was talking bubble, and like obviously I was way early. We've run up since then, but like still, dude. Like if we're looking at the SP 500, and the Mag 7 is like heavily holding up the market,
Mm-hmm.
and the growth, like the top or the other 493 companies, like because the chart is so skewed, that trend line going up doesn't look that great, but it's still great. It's just that everything else is just so beyond what we've ever seen before, outside of like um, the .com bubble and like the 2008 financial crisis.
Yep. For
And
sure.
yeah, it's just that's why we diversify, because like, dude, if the shoe drops, man, I mean, it already is dragging down the market,
Right.
and it's not the other 493 to blame, because their revenues aren't in the trillions, they're billions, and doing all these weird um, hypothetical, like like they're not projecting earnings based on what could be. That's everybody's in the hype about quantum and AI right now, and so they want to get in early, and then when those winners play out, they're like kind of in on the ground floor. And for me personally, I'm just kind of like, I think I just need to wait for the dust to settle, find
Mm-hmm.
out who the winners are, and then when it's not as like glamorous anymore, then start to invest in some of those companies.
For sure, for sure. But with that all being said, Michael Burry is really betting heavily. Where is that post I got? Sorry, Michael Burry's betting heavily on a an AI bubble short. He did post this chart though, which I thought was a little bit misleading, and I'm not sure what he's trying to get at here. So, really quickly, he's talking about cloud segment growth, right, year over year. So he says 2 key periods. This is a 4-year period. This is a 2-year period. So it would seem that Microsoft's cloud computing is growing at a very strong rate because in 2 years they've nearly matched what they did in 4 years. Not to mention that after this 4-year growth, a 20% growth on a bigger number is actually probably, in terms of if you look at dollar amount, this is probably significantly more on the right than the left. And then
for sure.
And then if you look at Alphabet, they're more than keeping up with this. Like that's huge growth. 2 years, very substantial. And then Amazon, honestly, it's a little bit less than half, but again, half the time frame. But again, 17% of a bigger number, it's pretty much in line. So I'm not sure why he's posting this as part of, talking about the tech capex growth matching the tech bubble, right? And basically, kind of saying we're in a bubble. I understand that's what he's talking about, which is this right here, prior to 2000, and then again right here, this is 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But he's betting heavily on the short. That's where he's at.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna see a new movie in the next 15 years, but
I don't think
stick
so.
around because we'll
I don't know.
We'll put when we're doing the podcast in 15 years, we'll have to talk about it. But hey, really quick though, before we get on to the next topic, Joe.
Yeah.
We're close to 500 subscribers.
Yes.
And we're gonna do a trade day giveaway.
Yes.
50K account.
50K account.
And we're gonna post socials on how to join that. But we need you guys to bump up those numbers, man. We gotta smash that subscribe button. You wanna hit that little animation, Joe?
Oh yeah.
For us?
Exactly. You guys need to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Bro, I don't know where that thing is.
Yeah. Oh, it's not on this scene probably, but
yes. There it is.
We're close. We're gonna give that account away. We like Trade Day. We've talked about them in the past. They have a lot of flexibility on the type of account you can choose, whether static, end of day, or trailing drawdowns. So if you like one over the other, you can pay for that. They have a wide selection of platforms, and there's no activation fees. So a lot of great stuff. Pick the platform you like. Pick the type of drawdown you like. Pick the account size. There's something for you. And use coast to coast if you're gonna buy an account in the meantime.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with Trade Day too is, when you're choosing your evaluation, right? TPT has like you're on end of day drawdown on the eval, and then you're on intraday drawdown on the funded. And so for only a couple dollars more at Trade Day, you can get end of day on both. Right?
And that's kind of a gotcha for some people,
Yeah. There are a lot of people who do exceptionally well, or they do well enough to pass the eval, and they're not getting their payouts with TPT because it switches to that end of day or intraday drawdown. So end of day being stronger for them. The other thing too with Trade Day is the payouts have been faster than TPT lately. Like me personally, I put in a request for a payout on the 5th from TPT. I have not received that money yet, and today's the 8th.
Yeah, dude, do you think it has anything to do with that Lanto guy that they're gonna have to pay out $500,000 to?
I don't know, because from what I understand, and he's had like a crazy, like I think almost $1.5 million run up in like 3 days or something wild. I haven't really been following it because there's a lot of noise around that trader. A lot of people saying that he was like a scammer and was running a bogus room for a while and this and that. So I don't know, and I'm not trying to throw shade on the guy. He's obviously trading very well right now, but he's supposedly in live. So why would there be any delays to pay me out if he's on live, and the profit split on live is 90-10? So if he made $1.5 million live, that means TPT profited $150,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't heard of him until just a couple of days ago when somebody posted about him. Like, who is Lanto? And then I didn't look into it afterward, but it just ended up showing up on my feed.
Yeah.
So they must have read my brainwaves or something.
That's how it goes, right? Because nobody knew who Trader Kane was, and then he got $1.9 million in a singular payout from Apex.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
So what do we got next?
um, Berkshire Hathaway, again, another thing that makes you wonder: are we setting up for this bubble? They are sitting on the most cash reserves ever, ever, ever,
That's a
ever.
lot of cash too. Almost 400 billion, guys. Jeez.
Yeah, and it's just been steadily increasing over the last few years. So I kind of wonder what country they're gonna buy, bro. Like,
$382 billion.
it's literally like this. This Warren
Yeah.
Buffett right now. Ooh, 400 billion. Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll be interested to see if what's gonna play out and what they're gonna do with this money. But
Yeah, because the green fear index is pretty extreme fear right now.
uh
What is it like 18 or 19?
21.
Okay, 21.
21, 21, 20.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah. And then
the last part, the last big thing with big money is we got Elon Musk. This is probably going to be Elon
yeah,
Musk also in
apparently
a few
people are
years.
thinking that yeah, except it'll be $1 trillion.
Exactly.
But yeah, apparently people seem to think that Elon's just gonna get $1 trillion in cash.
Hmm.
And that's not at all how this is structured. He's got to hit some really wild growth targets for Tesla. And he's not taking money out of the company. He's getting options to buy shares at current price, basically.
Yeah. Right. Right. But these are some
So,
pretty lofty targets, right? Like
yeah.
the
Hmm.
10-year goal is to bring operating profit up from 16 billion to 400 billion. That's some pretty insane growth.
Yeah.
This one seems like it is possible. At least the most possible, because we're talking about, yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
more than double where we are now, but
Hmm.
Teslas are pretty popular cars.
Yeah. And on top of that, the auto space is still really huge. There's a lot of players in general. So that's the great thing about this particular company is that there's room for growth.
Right, right.
Um,
Uh,
and I should have saved the post, but I think I saw that 75% of shareholders supposedly are in favor of this package anyway.
76.6%. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, as a shareholder, people are voting on the fact that if Elon can help guide the company to be this big of a company, the return that
Hmm.
the investors would see would be extremely substantial, right? I mean, if we
Yeah.
obviously he needs to achieve a $2 trillion value in order to um in order for him to achieve that first payout, right?
Hmm.
I'm just quickly looking up here on my phone because I know I got it like readily available. The market cap is currently 1.43 trillion. So let's just round up to 1.5. This right here is a 5x growth. This puts the price of Tesla at $2,200 or so per share.
And you know what, Joe? We should remind people that their market cap in 2019 was like under 50 billion. I mean, it was higher than that prior, but like before before 2020, before things got really wild, before they started profitability, before they were when they were like at $80 a share or something,
Mm-hmm.
under 50 billion market cap, and like you're saying now, it's in the trillions. So he's got a track record for running this company well.
Yeah. So it's pretty wild. It's gonna be pretty wild, man.
So
I got
pay
no
the
problem
man.
with it. Okay, I got no problem with it. Pay the man.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
one thing that I would love to see change with Tesla is
Hmm.
pay a dividend.
that would be sick
Like
for sure.
I don't even care if it's 50 cents a quarter, right?
Hmm.
Or 25 cents a quarter, a dollar a year. Start paying a dividend, right? I think
Yeah, I think
that
that would be really good.
I think that
People
would
would like that.
and I think it would entice people to hold on to their shares longer. I think it would entice a lot of a wave of new investors, you know, etc. And I honestly would not be surprised if they decided to kind of roll out those two in one shot, like this two, like the dividend one and the stock split two. Like, hey, we're gonna
Yeah, for
split.
sure.
Like if they get to, or they get to, or they maintain over 500 a share, split it 5 to 1, drops them back down to under 100. Start paying a dividend of 25 cents a share. Boom, per quarter. Boom, dude, that thing's gonna skyrocket.
Yeah, and you know what would also rocket, in my opinion. Speaking of rockets, as Elon mentioned on X somewhat recently, I guess I should have saved the post, but he's like he'd like to find a way to make SpaceX public, and I would totally buy.
Yeah, I think there are gonna be a lot of people
Yeah.
who are very interested in that.
Hmm.
Very interested. We'll have to do
Well,
a
what do you think? We wrap this up?
yeah, bro. Yeah, we'll have to revisit the whole SpaceX and IPOs thing another time.
Yeah, sure. All right, guys, we appreciate you for sticking around, and if you could smash the like and subscribe, get us to that 500 mark, and let's do a giveaway.
Oh yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.